I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
Hello, I'm James Brown, and on behalf of the Eastern Church of Christ located in Toronto, Canada, I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Walking Through the Bible, a podcast where we seek to study the Bible and the Bible alone. Please stick around afterwards for information on how you can contact us. But for now, please go to the book of Genesis, and we'll turn you over to Jeremy Dieselkamp for our study of the day.
Thank you, James, and welcome to all of our viewers. This is the 153rd lesson in our study of Genesis. Yesterday we covered Genesis chapter 44, verses 18 to 34, discussing how Judah pleaded with Joseph for mercy. If you missed that episode and would like to watch it, you can find it and all of our other podcasts on our website at www.eastendchurch.org. You can also find them on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/EastEndChurchOfChrist under the Walking Through the Bible Genesis playlist. Today we're going to begin with Genesis 45 verse 1 and read through verse 8. The text that you'll see on the screen is from the English Standard Version, but you're welcome to follow along with any version that you have. So let's now read Genesis 45, beginning at verse 1. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. He cried, "Make everyone go out from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud so that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. So Joseph said to his brothers, "Come near to me, please." And they came near. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on the earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt." At the end of chapter 44, you have Judah pleading with Joseph for mercy. If you recall, a silver cup belonging to Joseph was found in Benjamin's sack, even though we know that Joseph had instructed it to be put there. He did this as a test to see if his brothers' feelings were genuine, that they had in fact repented, or whether they were putting a charade on in front of him. At first, Judah said that all of them could be Joseph's servants, to which Joseph said that wouldn't be just. He would simply take the one in whose sack the cup was found. Judah, being a security on Benjamin's life, then requested that Joseph accept him as a substitute, because if Benjamin didn't return to Jacob, surely his father would die. That act on Judah's part was unthinkable 22 years earlier, when he devised the plan to sell Joseph into slavery. But it is that request that finally proved to Joseph that the repentance was genuine. So at the beginning of chapter 45, Joseph dismissed all the Egyptians so that he could speak to his brothers in private. He wept aloud, so loud in fact that the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard it. He then tells his brothers who he is, that he was in fact their brother Joseph, whom they sold as a slave down into Egypt. It would have been interesting had smartphones existed to record the event, just so that we could see the look on their faces. But the passage says that they could not speak, for the ESV says that they were dismayed at his presence. This means that they were alarmed or trembled at his presence. Just think, they had sold Joseph into Egypt and most likely thought that he would either have been killed by the Ishmaelites, or if they didn't kill him, the Egyptians certainly would. And yet now here he is alive, standing right in front of them. But even more pressing than him just being alive, but the position he held in Egypt was one of power. In chapter 44, verse 18, Judah said that Joseph was like Pharaoh, meaning that he had the power over life and death. It is almost certain that the brothers thought that Joseph would take revenge out on them. But Joseph does not. He tells them to come close and not to be afraid. He also tells them not to be angry with themselves for selling him into Egypt, for God sent him there before them in order to preserve life. We don't know when Joseph came to that conclusion, whether it was right at that moment or sometime earlier, but Joseph here expresses to them that they didn't send him to Egypt, but God did in order to preserve the lives of the children of Israel. Now let's be careful how we read and understand this passage. For if we read it carelessly, we might conclude that it was God who placed into the hearts of the brothers the evil thing to sell Joseph into Egypt. That is not what the verse said. The brothers devised the plan, but just as he had done previously in this book, God used this wicked deed for the good of accomplishing his purpose. What was that purpose? Again, it was to save Israel from the famine, for there were still 5 years left to come. With that, our time is up for today. Please join us, Lord willing, tomorrow when we will continue our study of Genesis, beginning with Genesis 45, verse 9.
Thank you, Jeremy. And to our viewers, we also thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Should you have a question or comment, please leave them below or email them to answerintheword@gmail.com. We'll try to respond to you as quickly as we can. We hope you'll join us, the Lord willing, tomorrow when we will be continuing on our study of the book of Genesis. Goodbye for now and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor